Choctaw High School is so proud to present the 2017-2018 edition of our award-winning dance team. The dance team competed this summer against some of the most competitive teams in the nation. They brought home third place in the small varsity division, full out award based upon choreographic excellence, as well as 2 All-American dancers, a bid for the Capital One Bowl, as well as qualifying for the Nation Dance Team Championship. The dance team are currently ranked 5th place in the nation. This dance team would like to thank the platinum sponsors, Chick-fil-A for Long Beach, Dow Law Firm, and Mango Disc Golf. They will be performing a hip-hop routine tonight. The team is led by captains Anita Johnson, Chelsea Money, co-captains Brooklyn Peter, squad leader David Simmons. Team members Kenzie Calderon, Carlton Carter, Vita Hollis, Abby Kincaid, Gabby Mitchell, Maddie Mox, Valerie Beckvermit, Madison Sexton.
National anthem, and that's big green. National anthem, and that's big green.
Now direct your attention to midfield, where our Air Force ROTC will be presenting colors. We're sitting for the presentation colors, commanding and carrying the U.S. flag, Cadet Major Alden McDonald. Carrying the Florida State flag, Cadet Captain William Sewell. Carrying the Choctaw High School flag, Cadet Major Ray Allen. With rifles, Cadet First Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Davis and Cadet First Lieutenant Michael Brown. Commanding the rifle team is Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Michael Scott. Commanding the flag team is Cadet First Lieutenant Harry Glover. Commanding the flag raising team is Cadet First Lieutenant Denise Waller. Our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. our national anthem. Thank you, and please remain standing until the caller has to the field. captain for the Bay High Tornadoes tonight are number 10, David Chapman, number 55, Deshaun Gibson, and number 59, John Carter. Captain for Choctaw, number 7, quarterback, Valerie Beckvermit. And number 34, linebacker, Miles Bradley. Choctaw's new run-through has been provided by Game Day Construction.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Joe Etheridge Stadium on a perfect football Friday night as the Indians of Choctaw set to take on the Bay High School Tornadoes out of Panama City in just a few minutes from now. Just about to get our coin toss underway. Your captains this evening for Choctawhatchee High School: number 7, Brady Uten; number 34, Miles Brantley, an offensive and defensive captain, respectively. As they walk to midfield for our coin flip, we'll have the results of that here in just a moment. But before we do, we'll tell you what is on the line for Choctaw this evening as they get set to take on the Tornadoes. The good news is that they are still very much in the playoff hunt. The bad news is that they need help. They need a lot of help in order to slip into the final wild card spot for the district. Now, Choctaw obviously has to get the job done this evening here at home against Bay in the final regular season game if they want the opportunity to advance. However, 2 other games the Indians will have their eyes on throughout the remainder of the evening. Nice High School, who needs to lose tonight, and a good possibility as they go up against a powerhouse on the other side of the state. And over in Pensacola, Tate High School has to lose this evening as well. We'll keep an eye on those 2 games for you throughout the remainder of the evening as the Indians need favorable results in both of those contests to move on to this year's FHSAA playoffs. The Indians have lost the toss, but Bay deferred, and therefore the Indians will get the football to begin the game. They'll be traveling from the south end zone to the north end zone. That's going to be right to left across your TV screen. My name is Rob Brown, your play-by-play announcer this evening. It is my honor to be here on behalf of Hillary Brown and her WBGI staff, who have been putting on the last few weeks of football for you and will continue to do other sports throughout the season and the rest of the school year. I hope to join you for many of those contests as the Indians make their way to the sideline. Hey Big Green from the band. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2017 Choctawhatchee High School Big Green Indian football team. Across the field, their opponents this evening, Bay High School. Bay not exactly having a stellar season of their own. They are 2-7 coming into this contest. Their 2 wins came over Rutherford High School, a 56-0 blowout back on September 1st. Their other win this year, the Fort Walton Beach High School Vikings, the crosstown rivals, in the matchup that came the week before Choctaw and Fort Walton squared off in the game, which of course was last Friday, a game that Choctaw handily won and put Fort Walton Beach on a running clock for the final few minutes of the 4th quarter. However, that win against Fort Walton Beach makes Choctaw take notice of the Bay High School Tornadoes, as if they are on top of their game, they are very much capable of running the ball, running the clock, keeping the ball out of the hands of number 7, Brady Uten, and making this a very long night for the Big Green. It is going to be up to Uten and, of course, his talented trio of receivers, including Zales Alexander, who had a couple of touchdowns in last week's contest, to put Bay down early and keep them there through the rest of the contest. Kicking off for Bay, number 23, Tanner Reese, a junior. Toe meets leather, and we are underway. The ball will be taken in around the 16-yard line, but a whistle before the kick. Taking a look down at the officials as there is yellow laundry on the field. Looks like we had a offsides there on Bay. So we'll line up for kickoff attempt number 2 on the evening. Illegal procedure is the official signal, so we will march off 5 yards. Good news for Choctaw. They'll get a little bit of help on their opening possession of the contest. So we'll try again. Reese lines them up. Reese makes his approach. Toe meets leather, and we are underway. The ball is gathered in around the 13-yard line and back up the middle. Here's the return. He's got a block, catches another one out across the 40 to midfield and into Bay territory. A big return there for Choctaw. That's going to be number 22, Reggie Fain, the stellar running back, tailback, who puts Choctaw deep into Bay territory on the first kickoff return of the evening. Fain, a gentleman whose name looks to be called many, many times this evening. Your starting quarterback, of course, Brady Ooten, who has had 3 enormous games in a row for Choctaw and looks to continue that momentum this evening. Ooten rolls out to the right, looking for a receiver down the field. He's got one, and it is a Choctaw touchdown. 1 toss, 1 catch. Marcus Malloy, the 6'1", 11th grader, on the very first play of the game, goes yard, and Choctaw on the board first. So Choctaw, just like that, is up early. The extra point is up, and it is good. 7-0 for the Indians, 11:42 showing. That didn't take long. 1 play. Ooten rolls out to the right. Malloy runs a simple inside post route, gets deep behind the Bay defenders, and a single snap later, the Indians have their first lead of the night. Just 18 seconds into the contest, it's 7-0. Big Green. Connor Hollis is your kickoff expert this evening. Marches back 7 and off 4. And he'll put the ball into the air and give Bay their first possession, trailing after, again, just 1 play, 1 drive, and a 45-yard touchdown pass. The ball tipped by a Bay receiver goes all the way into the end zone. That would be number 5, Marcus Molds, the sophomore running back for Bay, who tipped the ball, but it rolls back into the end zone. So Choctaw pins Bay back at the 20-yard line to start their very first drive of the evening. Number 3, Blaine Watkins, a 6', 155-pound sophomore, will be your quarterback for the Bay Tornadoes this evening, and he will start off in the shotgun formation, motions a receiver from left to right. Quick snap, quick pass, and he is taken down fast and hard by number 1, Jimmy Hart. Hart came up from that deep corner position and without delay stopped the play. Great defensive awareness there from Hart. Bay trying to get that quick pass out into the flats and give the running back some room to run. That's number 5, Marcus Molds, but nowhere to go as Hart attacked that play from that deep corner position. Great awareness from number 1. 2nd down and 10 now for the Tornadoes. There's the fake handoff up the middle and a quick pass across the middle, and the ball comes out but incomplete, says the official again. Watkins was looking for his wide receiver running right across the middle. That time it was number 6, Jaquel King, a 5'8", 135-pound senior. He came from that slot position off of the left. A good route, and the ball hit him right in the hands, but just too quick. He wasn't quite ready for it. Bounced off his chest. The Indians thought they might have picked up a fumble, but not enough possession according to the official, and so it's now 3rd and 10 for the Bay High School Tornadoes. Nobody in the backfield with Watkins. He'll roll out to his left looking for a receiver. Got one, but can't get it there. Short hops King, who rolled just behind the linebackers in coverage. Actually had room, but since Watkins was on the run, threw across his body and short hopped it. So a 3 and out as the Choctaw defense puts Bay on skates. And here we go. It's back to the Indians' possession. Deep to receive this return is going to be Xavier Kane Fuller for the Indians, number 11. He stands ready at the 42-yard line. The snap, the punt is not a great one. It is going to go out of bounds just a few yards away from where it was punted. The official makes his way to the sideline and marks the dead ball around the 42-yard line. I think he may actually be giving Bay just about 10 yards worth of credit there, but a disadvantageous position for the official. Choctaw will take over once again in Bay territory, just a few yards away from where they started. Drive number 1 is where they'll take over for the 2nd time at the Bay 42-yard line. Uten in the eye set, a pair of running backs with him. And these are the moments you'll see a lot of guard and tackle pulls out of the Indians, and that's what we'll have. The left tackle is going to roll out. Uten's going for it again. It's up and just overthrown. Looked like he might have had his man Zales Alexander, but the ball about 8 inches too high. If Zales had just one more step, he might have been able to plant that right foot and go to the sky, but he was fully on the accelerator, so no room to pull off and elevate for the football there. Uten with a tremendous throw, put it where only Zales could catch it, but Zales just a touch away from the final destination. So it'll be 2nd and 10 now for Uten and the Indians, back to that I formation. Tight end lined up on the right-hand side, and again, you'll want to keep an eye on those guards and tackles. Choctaw likes to run a lot of inside dives, a lot of inside isolations, pull those linemen across the formation. The right guard pulls and opens up a hole for just a moment, but great defense from Bay there. That is number 9. That's going to be Anthony Hayes. They call him Tank. That's on the official roster. You know it's a stuck nickname when they print it on the official roster, but Tank lays out number 6. Excuse me, that was, it looked like Super Mario. Mario Banks with that dive play there. So 3rd now, and we'll call it a long 9 for Uten and the Indians. Back in the shotgun with Fain to his right. He'll drop back. Got protection. Looks across the field, and it is caught just at the 1st down marker. We'll have to see what the spot is going to be. Good catch there. Laying out was number 8, Tanner Pattinson. The senior had to go down into the dirt to catch that rock, and he does. The officials mark the ball at the, we'll call it, 33-yard line. It is going to be a yard short of the 1st down. So 4th and 1 for the Indians. Uten will go line up under center. The I formation again, tight end to the right, takes the snap. He's going to give it off on the run side. And there goes Fain. Fain makes a man miss, and a second, and a shoestring tackle saves a touchdown for Bay. That's Jaquel King, the senior cornerback, who saved the Bay Tornadoes from going down by 2 scores there. Fain coming off the right guard, dodged the linebacker tackle, got to the 2nd level, and it was all King had to lay out and grab him by a shoestring. Uten back in the I formation with the dive play to the fullback. That's going to be number 24, Mario Banks, and Banks will carry down to the 11-yard line. Good for 6 yards on the fullback dive. And you may see quite a bit of those type of inside runs from Choctaw. This Bay Tornado roster is not a big one. They are not very deep. They have a handful of players who do play both ways, offense and defense, so they may get tired. Uten up to the corner. It's going to be a jump contest, but Uten sails that one out of bounds. He was looking for Zales Alexander. He had number 6, Jaquel King, the cornerback, who saved the touchdown on the last play, out there in good coverage. There was just nowhere for Uten to drop the ball in the bucket. Throws it out of bounds, and we will move on to a second down formation, or excuse me, third down now for the Indians. Again, you'll probably see a lot of those inside type runs from the Indians, and especially on first and second down, just trying to wear down the Bay Tornadoes. You have the strength in numbers here. Make sure that you are really making those defensive linemen work. There's a handoff inside to Fain. Fain is going to crush it down to around the 5-yard line. Tripped up by a number of Tornadoes on that one. The stop ultimately made by number 16, Dalton Rutherford, the inside linebacker who stands 5'9" and 175. And again, just a freshman for Bay. And Bay does have a number of freshmen who'll be playing on both sides of the football. Again, even with more numbers in their favor, the Indians cannot take this Bay Tornado football team for granted. They did come into Fort Walton a couple of weeks ago and get a win. There's a handoff to Fain off the right-hand side, and Fain is going to be tracked down on the backside by Bay's defensive tackle, number 73, Jaquanta Brown, makes the stop. Brown, a 6'1", 224-pound sophomore. He's one of the stalwarts of the Bay defensive line, and one of the guys that the Indians will have to be very careful. You don't want to run your better players in the waiting arms of Brown too many times. So second down now for Choctaw from the 5-yard line. There's a pitch out to the left and nowhere to go. Great defense from number 27, Shamar Hill, the outside backer, a 216-pound, 6-foot-tall outside backer. He had that one sniffed out from the beginning. They went pitch left to Fain, and nowhere to go for Reggie Fain. Swallowed up at the moment he touched the football. A loss of 4 for the Indians, all the way back to their 9-yard line now. Uten drops back, and a whistle blows. Probably saved Uten there as number 28. It's going to be Ranique Bass. Middle linebacker came screaming in. The indication is a false start against the Indians. So on 3rd and goal from the 9-yard line, the Indians make it just a little more difficult on themselves. We're going to back it all the way out to around the 14-yard line. We'll see if the Indians try to hand it off to Fain. They've got trips receivers to the right, and Bay looks like they're in man coverage up there. So Eaton is going to look to throw. Throws it over to Fain, and Fain's got one man to beat. Waiting for the indication from the official, and he's in. Touchdown, Reggie Fain. Uten with the outstanding fake there to the defense. He dropped back in the pocket. He looked to the right-hand side where the Indians had 3 wide receivers with man coverage. The whole defense rotated that way. In the meantime, Fain snuck out from the halfback position, brought the guard tackle from the left side with him on a little screen play, and when Uten hit him on that little finesse dump pass, there was just one man to beat, and he did it. Touchdown. Reggie Fain talks the Indians up. 14-0 now on the scoreboard. A 2-score game for the Big Green. 6:48 showing in the first quarter. Choctaw leads 14-0. So with a 14-0 lead, the Choctawhatchee Indians get set to square it back up with the Bay Tornadoes on their side of the field, pending good kickoff coverage. Obviously, there's the kick. It's going to be much better this time, taken in at the 7-yard line, out across to the 20-yard line. And so Bay will start at the same spot they did last time. Credit on the return to the 20-yard line. A host of Indians on the stop. They keep number 28, Renege Bass, from getting too much yardage on the return. So Bay will once again take over their second possession from the 20-yard line on their side of the field. We've got a official timeout on the field. We'll call this one for a water break. 6:40 on the clock, 14-0 Indians. You're watching Big Green Indian football. Choctaw on defense. Bay with the ball on the 20-yard line. There's a quick toss out to the left. He's got a man, and out to the 31-yard line goes number 30, Quinn Ford, a 5'11", 160-pound wide receiver. Driven out of bounds by a pair of Indians, Jimmy Hart and Xavier Kane Fuller, both on the defense. So the Indians surrender their first down to the Tornadoes of Bay. Back in the pocket is Blaine Watkins. Your quarterback puts a man in motion, right to left, calls for the snap, and gets it. Looking down the left-hand side, but nowhere to go, so he tucks and runs, and he's taken down by the big defensive tackle, number 76, Tion Duncan, a 6'2", 230-pound senior who came up the middle. Watkins was looking down the left-hand side and looked like he might have had a receiver with a step on all the Indian defensive backs, but not enough time, and Tion gets credit for the tackle. 2nd and 10 now for Bay. Watkins looking to throw again and does so. That's a high floating pass, knocked away there by number 14 for the Indians. That's Marquetrius Warmbull, the 165-pound, 5'10" defensive back, who that ball was floating forever. Watkins put a lot of air under it, and it gave Warmbull enough time to turn around and find the football. And that's just a tough pass. You've got to put enough air on it to drop it over the defensive back and into the wide receiver's hands, but not so much that the defensive back has time to establish his feet and turn and knock the ball down. 3rd and 10 now for Bay. Watkins going to look out to the left. Got a man tipped, and it's caught. Wow. An unfortunate series of events for the Indians there. Outstanding coverage from Marquetrius Warmbull. He knocked the last one down, got his hands on that one, but he tips it up into the air, and Mike Sims, the senior, plays tip drill, takes it in, and earns Bay's 2nd first down on this drive. Outstanding awareness by the defensive back. Better ball awareness from the wide receiver. 1st down for Bay. Trips to the bottom of your screen. They'll bring a man in motion and toss it to him. He's looking for the cutback, and there it is. Good for just a couple of yards, though. The inside pitch there to number 6, Jaquel King. He's met by a handful of Indian defenders after just a long 1-yard gain. So 2nd and 9 now for Bay after the toss sweep right. And those are the type of things Bay might have to do if they want an opportunity to get this Choctaw Indian defense back on its heels. Keep them honest, keep them looking. Watkins on the keeper, and he is met hard up the middle. Spins off the initial tackle, but by that point, nowhere to go. Number 44, Sean Yu, the 10th grader, 200-pound, 5'10" linebacker, came in hard, spotted and sized up Watkins, put helmet across chest, and knocked him back until another host of Indians could get there. You had a touchdown return interception last week that really sealed the deal against Fort Walton Beach, looking to replicate that big game tonight. 3rd and long now for Bay. Watkins on a run for his life. Look at the Indians chasing him, and he just grounds the ball. Had number 10, David Chapman, the senior wide receiver, but no chance to get him there. Chapman had 2 defenders on him. 4 Indians were chasing Watkins off the right-hand side, and he had no opportunity to get rid of the football. So 4th and 8 now for the Bay Tornadoes. They are still inside of their own territory. Not a strong punt game for the Tornadoes. I had the opportunity to walk down on the field before the game started and watch their special teams, and not a very strong punt game, so you'll see them going for it quite frequently on 4th down, and it looks like they will start that strategy here. 4th and 7 for Bay. The Indians threatening the blitz. They do not bring one. Watkins is going to throw it, and he's got a man, but the wide receiver unable to come up with a catch. That's Taj Johnson, the senior wide receiver, had him. Watkins put it in his hands, and he was just unable to come up with a grab. That would have been not only a 1st down for Bay, it would have been a defeating blow to the Indians. That might have been 6. Certainly the first big game and a confidence booster for Bay. Instead, the ball hits the turf, and the Indians take over for the 3rd time inside of Bay territory at the 49-yard line. Ooten back in the shotgun with 1 receiver. He'll fake the handoff, looking down the field again. Ooten out to the right-hand side, and he's got a man. It is complete. Great snag there out on the outside from number 8, Tanner Pattinson. Good rollout from Ooten. Ooten realized he had pressure coming from the left-hand side. He had the H-back defender on the right, so an extra blocker on that side, rolled to the outside and threw a beautiful pass to Tanner Pattinson. Good for the Indian 1st down, 29-yard line. The Indians lead 14-0 with 3:42 ticking away on the 1st quarter. Jumbo pack here for the Indians. Everybody in tight. They will hand off across the formation, and he slips up. Does the running back. The backside corner, or excuse me, the backside slot was Lenore Minardo, a 5'8", 150-pound senior. Looked like he might have been able to win a foot race to the corner, but his right foot gave out on him. He slipped down, and the Indians will settle for no gain on that play. So 2nd and 10 from the 29 for Ooten and the Indians. H-back again on the right, slot man across the middle, fakes the handoff to Fain. Ooten rolls out, and he's got pressure, but he gets away from it. Calling for a receiver, nowhere to go, so he calls his own number into the 26-yard line. So Ooten, who was under threat from the Bay defensive line, was able to slip out and turn what could have been a 4 or 5-yard loss into a 4-yard gain. It's now 3rd and 6 for the Indians at the 26-yard line of the Bay Tornadoes. Third and 6 now for Choctaw from the 26-yard line. There's the handoff to, no, Ooten pulls it. He's got room to run down inside the 20-yard line and fights to the 11. A big run there of about 15 yards for Ooten. Ooten was going to hand it off to Fain. Fain got smothered in the backfield. Ooten wisely pulls the ball from the gut of 22, keeps it himself, sends the rest of the defensive line chasing after Fain, calls his own number. The Indians in business. 1st and 10 from the 11. Ooten with the outside pass off the hands of Marcus Malloy. The junior wide receiver just not quite facing Ooten, so was unaware the ball was on its way to him. He was around the 5-yard line, so it would have been a decent gain for the Indians. Instead, will settle for 2nd and 10 from the 11-yard line. Room for the Indians to get a 1st down, but they'd much rather just go ahead and gain the 11, stick it in the end zone, take a 3-score lead in the 1st quarter. Ooten with his feet on the 15-yard line. The handoff off the right. No, Ooten keeps it again and again. Ooten scores. Touchdown. Big Green Indians. Great play fake for the 2nd time on that drive. Ooten fakes the handoff to Fain, gets the defensive line and linebackers to bite. They swarm around Reggie Fain. Ooten pulls it away from the waiting arms of 22, goes opposite direction, and not a single Bay defender between him and the goal line. He fights his way through the last two defenders who were the last line of defense, and Ooten punches it in to give the Indians a 20-0 lead, 2:22 showing on the clock. Here in the first quarter, we have a Bay defender down. It looks like number 2, Mike Sims, 5'10", 180-pound safety. He came up to try to stop Ooten from scoring. Ooten is no slouch in his own right. He's 205 pounds listed on the roster, and I've been told by some of the folks on the Choctaw sideline that 205 was his preseason cutting weight, and that he's put on a few more pounds of muscle since then. So Mike Sims went one-on-one with Brady Ooten, and unfortunately, in the final game of Bay season, comes up injured. He'll make his way to the sideline as Choctaw sends on their extra point team to try to tack another one onto this lead. The snap, the hold, the kick is good. Knocks it through to his number 12, Brady Peters. And the Indians now hold a 3-score lead with 2:22 showing here in the first quarter. It is Choctaw 21, Bay nothing. We are underway. This one a very good kickoff. It's going to be fielded inside the 5-yard line. Good head of steam and runs into his own man. Number 28, Waylon Travis. Looked like he had a great return set up. He had green grass in front of him. Unfortunately, Xander Lovechuck, the senior wide receiver, was engaged in a block, came off the block, and his hips got in the way of Travis. So the Indians perhaps saved by Lovechuck being a MVP on that return. That might have put Bay on the scoreboard for the first time. Instead, they'll set up shop on their side of the field. Down the sideline, and he's got room, but just overthrows Xander Lovechuck, the senior wide receiver. We were just talking about him. Looked to make up on that. He was lined up on the sideline. One-on-one coverage on the outside there provided by Xavier Kane Fuller, excuse me. Kane Fuller fell a step behind Lovechuck, but unfortunately for Blaine Watkins, just overthrew him by about 3 inches. You may want to keep an eye on that matchup again. Lovechuck's got about 3 inches on Kane Fuller, so that might be a passing route they look to go to more than once during this game. Watkins takes the snap, throws it over to the outside and nearly intercepted. Great defensive effort there by number 21. That is Jeffrey Jones, the senior linebacker for Choctaw. That one would have been housed for 6 if he could have taken it in. You hate to say good defense by a wide receiver, but good defense by a wide receiver. Looks like Jaquel King who was the intended target of that, recognized that the defensive back / linebacker had jumped the route and was able to get his hand around and knock that ball back into the turf, saving this drive for Bay. 3rd and 10. The quick out pass is overthrown by Watkins. He was looking for David Chapman, who had gone on a wheel route there, but unavailable as the ball was just soared over his head. So another 3 and out for Bay will set up Choctaw High School to return another punt. And it's Xavier Kane Fuller with his heels back on the Indian 38-yard line. He awaits the punt. We'll see if Bay can get a better angle on this one than their last punt. The snap is there, and they're going to fake it, and it overthrown. An effort there by Tanner Reese, the punter for Bay. Looked like he was trying to find we'll call him number 16 for Bay. That's Dalton Rutherford. The Bay Tornadoes trying to pull a slick one there on the Indians, but the punter unfortunately unable to connect with his receiver out in the flats, and so the punt effort, the fake punt effort, gives the Indians the ball even deeper in Bay territory. They'll start this drive 1st and 10 on the Bay 22. Nope, we'll call it after a referee moves the ball back a couple of yards. We'll call it the 24-yard line. Uten back under center, I formation. He'll hand it to Banks up the middle, and Banks is going to carry Bay defenders all the way down to the 11-yard line. It took number 27, Shamar Hill, all over Banks' back, and Banks even carried him for about 5 yards before he finally goes to the turf at the 11-yard line. So 1st and 10 for the Indians at the 11-yard line as they try to make this a 4-score football game before the first quarter ends. Uten in the I formation, a single receiver left, a single right. Uten rolls out, fakes the throw, and gets hit hard out at the 11-yard line. No gain there. Number 8, Isaiah Paul, the senior cornerback, was the playmaker there for the Bay Tornadoes. He came up and laid the lumber on Uten pretty good. No gain on the play. Uten was trying to find his wide receiver, Zalis Alexander. Alexander was well covered, so Uten pulled it down and took it himself, but nowhere to go. We're back in the I formation, again to Fuller. And again, Fuller carries a few Bay Tornadoes, but not quite as much productivity on the final result this time as they absolutely crashed the line waiting for Super Mario up the middle. That gain is good for 4. We'll call it 3rd and a long 6 for the Indians. Uten with Fain back in the shotgun formation, a pair of receivers to his left, a tight end and a split receiver to the right. Uten's going to pull it down. Screen to the backside. He's got one blocker and one man to beat. Touchdown, Indians. That is number 20, Johnny Holguin, the big tight end, the 6'1", 180-pound junior. Outstanding awareness there. He set his block very well, convinced the linebackers that he was a blocker, not a pass runner, allowed the linebackers to drop off into coverage, took a tackle with him, dropped a couple of feet behind the line of scrimmage into a screen formation, snagged the ball, waited till he had it to turn and run for the end zone, needed to beat one, touchdown Indians. 28-0 with 22 seconds still showing here in the first quarter. The Indians are pulling away already. You're watching Big Green Indian football. 22 seconds showing off as Choctaw set to put toe to leather and give Bay another opportunity inside. There's the ball taken at the 11-yard line, and he slips. Number 28, Renige Base, may have had some room to run as we got flags coming in from all over the field. It's gotten a little chippy between the Tornadoes and the Indians after the past handful of plays, and no doubt the Tornadoes a bit frustrated after going down 4 touchdowns in the first 11 minutes of play. We'll wait for the indication. You'll see your main official there in the white hat. We'll wait for his signal. No idea where this is coming from, though. Again, we got a personal foul called against Bay. We've got a personal foul called against Choctaw. So one against both teams, and this is typically done since those 2 penalties will offset. This is typically done this early in the game, ordinarily, because it was deserved, but also to give a bit of a warning to both squads to make sure that we keep this type of behavior to a minimum. So there's the walk-off against the Bay Tornadoes. We've got an additional personal foul called, so here we'll walk it right back to where it was. Everybody takes a stroll 15 towards the goal line, takes a stroll 15 back. So the final indication there is a personal foul against both squads. So the result of the kickoff return will stand, and Bay will have it 1st and 10 from the 28-yard line. Number 3, Blaine Watkins sends his receiver in motion right to left. So now he's got trips up to the left to look for the out route up top, and he's got a man knocked away. Great defense there from Jimmy Hart. That was a fantastic defensive effort. Jaquel King looked like he was on his way to punching in 6 for the Tornadoes, but Jimmy Hart went full extension, was able to get a mitt on the rock and knock it down, saves a Bay touchdown, and now it's 2nd and 10 for the Tornadoes after an outstanding defensive effort from Jimmy Hart, the defensive back sophomore. Watkins back in the shotgun again, a running back with him this time, who will send out in motion. Quick throw to the inside, but nothing there. Xander Lovechuck was looking to run a quick bubble screen from the outside. He was going up underneath number 55, Deshaun Gibson, a utility player who can line up at defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, linebacker. Use that time as a blocker. But great awareness from number 11, Xavier Kane Fuller, who sniffed out the screen, was able to push Lovechuck back further away from the ball. 3rd down now for the Tornadoes. There's the snap. Watkins looking for something. He's going to have to scramble out to his right, and he's got a man down the sideline. Can't hold on. Number 31, Keith Hayes, had room to run for the Tornado 1st down, but he drops the rock. And I will say this about the Bay Tornadoes. They are finding ways to turn little defensive inconsistencies of the Indians into opportunities. However, when they get those opportunities, they're just unable to capitalize on them. That would have been a 1st down for Bay, and likely their first adventure into Indian territory of the evening. But instead, Keith Hayes unable to come up with what should have been an easy snag on the sideline, undefended. And he cost what could have been a 1st down for the Tornadoes. Turns it into yet another 4th down deep inside of their own territory. And the punt for the Tornadoes, they will punt this time. The kicker gets slammed, but the official says the ball was tipped. 3 or 4 different Indians made their way into the backfield, including Jimmy Hart, who's having a big game, but he comes off the field shaking his left hand. He's got a couple of trainers heading over to take a look at him. Bay was hoping to get a running into the kicker call there, but the white hat official in the backfield says that the ball got tipped, so the Indians get away with that one. The ball does roll back to the 45-yard line, so this is the first drive of the evening. Choctaw's 4 for 4 on touchdowns. However, this is the longest they will have to go, 55 yards away from pay dirt. Uten with the I formation, turns it, hands it, all slammed in the backfield. Great defensive effort there from number 35, Anthony Guilford, the defensive tackle. He's a junior and a big boy at that. He sniffed that one out from the beginning, came blazing through the line, and Fane had no sooner caught the rock off the pitch when he was slammed to the turf. A loss of 2 for the Indians, 2nd and 12. So in the I formation again, he'll hand off to Fane again, and Fane will get those 2 yards back, plus an additional 6 across midfield out to the 49-yard line on the base side of the football field. Reggie Fane makes up for that last loss by coming up with another big gain. So what could have been a difficult 3rd and 10 or longer turns into a manageable 3rd and 4 for the Indians. They need to get to the 45-yard line to convert the first down. 10:43 showing on the clock. Indians up 28-0. Uten takes the snap, hands it to Banks. No, he doesn't. He pulls it again. He is going to get the Indian first down before finally being taken down by number 20, Jay-Sean Rouse. But not before he secures the first down for the Indians and makes this one a 1st and 10 from the 43. And I'll say this, one of the skills that Uten has that I have been very impressed with over the past few weeks, he has a tremendous ability to really disguise those handoffs. His handoffs where he pulls and keeps the ball look identical to when he hands it off and gives the ball to the running back. And if he's fooling me up here in the press box, I know it can be difficult. There's a big shot down the field into double coverage. And it's caught for the Indian touchdown. Unbelievable catch by number 6, Zalis Alexander. The senior comes up with one of his most perfect touchdown hauls of the season. Uten tosses the rock 42 yards all the way down to the goal line into double coverage, and Zalis Alexander does not break concentration, comes up with another 6, and this one is an extra point away from becoming a running clock affair, only 1:49 into the 2nd quarter. Snap, hold, kick, good. And the Indians take a 35-0 lead over Bay. 10 minutes, 11 seconds showing here in the first half. Wow, an impressive toss and catch from Uten to Alexander. The Indians with a big lead. You're watching Big Green Indian football. Ten minutes, 11 seconds showing on the clock here. Indians up 35-0 over the Bay Tornadoes. Remember, the Fort Walton Beach Vikings were a common opponent between these two teams. Choctaw running clocked Fort Walton. Bay went into Fort Walton and snagged the victory, just their 2nd on the year. There's the kick. It is a short one and a fair catch called for at the 26-yard line. And shockingly enough, this is the best starting field position that Bay has had throughout the evening. So Bay moving from south to north, starting on the 26-yard line. There's the handoff, and I believe that's actually the first rushing play that Bay has run so far this evening. Takes them 2 minutes into the second quarter before they do so. The handoff to number 5, Marcus Molds, the sophomore running back. The first time that Bay has attempted to run against the Indian defensive line, and it's good for 6, 2nd and 4 for Bay. They'll go to the same play, off to the right-hand side. Molds with room to run. He's across midfield and finally taken down, fought to the turf by number 1, Jimmy Hart. So 2 rushing plays for Bay, and all of the sudden, they are in Indian territory, the 39-yard line, the deepest that Bay has been in field position so far in this contest. 2 runs for Molds and a good 30-plus yards in rushing for him. Back to the pass. This time, Watkins is going to roll to the right. Looking over the middle. He's got a man. He dropped it. Unbelievable. David Chapman was running wide open. Had squarely passed Xavier Kane Fuller. That was one of those opportunities we talked about early. Bay is forcing Choctaw into making defensive mistakes, but then just not capitalizing when they have opportunities. That should have been a Bay touchdown. Instead, it's now 2nd and 10 with another Watkins incompletion on the board. They'll hand it back to Molds. Molds runs off the middle, right-hand side, and gains 4, met by a host of Indians just off guard. So 3rd and 6 now for Bay, and I promise you they will be thinking about that drop pass for quite a while. As that one, I can't say would have changed the flow of the game. It's still 35-0, but certainly would have given them some confidence. Watkins calls his own number this time. He's going to get out to around, we'll call it the 37-yard line. A gain of about 3 on the play is going to bring up 4th down and 3 yards to go to convert the first down. Bay, again, the deepest that they have been in Choctaw territory so far in this contest. Jumbo formation, all 3 offensive players and the Wildcat quarterback, and he is going to be dropped real close to the first down marker. Still fighting in the second effort, earns the first down. Number 28, Renege Bass, the senior running back, 195 pounds, and he used every one of those to pull a host of Indian defenders 3 yards after contact. They needed 2 for the first down, and they got it. So Bay earns their first down inside of Choctaw territory as they make their way to the 27-yard line. Watkins now back in the shotgun formation. 4 receivers, and he moves his 5th over there. A jet sweep, the reverse end around, and he's looking for Watkins, the quarterback, who's got plenty of room. And it's intercepted. The Choctaw defense, number 9, Detarian Grant, comes up with the INT, the trick play for Bay. Nearly a touchdown. Number 10, David Chapman, was lined up as a receiver on the left-hand side. The slot receiver from the right came on an end around. It looked like it was going to be a sweep. He tossed it back to Chapman, going from left back to right. In the meantime, Watkins from the quarterback position had slipped out of the backfield and made his way deep into Indian territory, but there was so much air under the ball that Detarian Grant had plenty of time to spot it, set himself up in position, go get it at its highest peak, and Bay's best drive turns into an Indian turnover. 1st and 10 inside the 10. Ooten gets rid of the ball, and it's going to be an Indian first down. The pass good out to number 20, Johnny Holgren. His 2nd on the night. He had the touchdown earlier in the evening. Ooten was under fire there on the bootleg rollout pass, but he saw that Holgren had sprung open and was able to hit his man in stride. So it is not a first down, just shy of it. We'll call it 2nd and 1 now for Ooten and the Indians. There's the snap. The handoff this time goes to Fain, and Fain fights his way out across the first down marker to around the 18-yard line. Good for an Indian first down. 7:02 showing on the clock, and we've got a Bay Tornado player gets up under his own power after the first down. We have got a timeout, an official timeout for a water break here. The Indians lead 45-0 with 7:02 showing here in the first half, and just about everything going wrong for the Bay offense so far this evening, outside of the fact that number 5, Marcus Moulds, has run the ball twice for about 40 total yards. They've had 3 or 4 different plays where they've sprung wide receivers, gotten wide receivers open, and then just hit the ball. The ball hits the turf, costing them valuable field position. The Indians, on the other hand, despite a handful of mistakes defensively, have managed to dodge a bunch of bullets defensively. Offensively, however, everything clicking very well. Uten is on target down the field. Zalis Alexander has been money in terms of coming up with big-time catches in big-time spots. The offense for the Indians clicking very well. And it's hard to say the defense is playing poorly when they're pitching a shutout, but if you've been watching this game from the beginning, it is quite obvious that Bay has squandered a handful of big opportunities. 6:52 showing, and we are underway. Uten does hand it off this time to Banks. Banks down the right-hand side and finally pulled out of bounds at the 30-yard line. Number 28, Reneke Bass comes up with the stop. Banks looked like he had some room to run, but he runs enough to gain the Indians a first down out to their own 30-yard line. A consistent march of the football so far on this drive. Not looking for any big plays, just grinding clock until halftime. The Indians will kick off to begin the second half, so they'd like to put some more points on the board before we end this one. The fake handoff from Uten this time. The quick shot out to the receiver, just out of reach of number 8, Tanner Pattison that time. Pattison on a nice little wheel route out to the flats. Good defense there from Bay. They were right on his heels, which forced Uten to throw it out just a hair too far for Pattison to come up with the snag. It's going to be 2nd and 10 for the Indians. Uten with another underneath screen, and this time there is room to run. Down the right-hand sideline, it is a foot race, a fantastic effort from Marcus Malloy. Lined up at the outside wide receiver position, ran the little bubble underneath a couple of blockers across the middle of the field, and I will take Marcus Malloy in a foot race against most linebackers. He got out through the secondary, and it took the backside safety to come up and make a play. First down for the Indians inside of Bay territory at the 33-yard line. 37-yard line, excuse me. Uten with a quick pass out to number 6, Zalis Alexander. He struts his stuff, and he's got room to go. Touchdown. Indians, number 6, Zalis Alexander. Back-to-back drives end with back-to-back Alexander touchdowns. That one was just looking to pick up a few yards and grind the clock. Alexander instead goes pay dirt. And the Indians are an XP away from a 42-0 lead. This one getting out of hand for the Bay Tornadoes. Zalis Alexander is a force to be reckoned with this evening, and you've got to give credit to the wide receiving core, all of them being selfless in terms of their blocking on the outside. The extra point snap, hold, kick, good. And the Indians up 42-0 with 5:43 showing on the clock. Again, the wide receivers on the last 3 or 4 Indian passing successes have been throwing outstanding blocks on the outside. None of them looking for glory, each of them playing team football. You got to be impressed by the way that this wide receiver unit is working as a whole. And of course, Uten has just been on target from start to finish this evening. 42-0 Indians, 5:43 in the first half. You're watching Big Green Indian football. Again, want to thank Hillary Brown and the staff of WBGI here at Choctaw High School for providing our live feed. And I believe that this will be available for many sports throughout the rest of the school year, basketball included. I hope to call some of those games for you. The kickoff fielded at the 32-yard line for Bay. Number 10, David Chapman, takes it and is immediately down by a host of Indians. So Bay will now get their, again, best starting field position of the evening. It's 1st and 10 Tornadoes from the 32-yard line. Again, if you are subscribed to YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the WBGI YouTube channel. Students especially, you can watch all of the latest editions of Tribal News. It's still Tribal News, right? Yes. I've only been gone 14 years. I got to make sure things haven't changed too much. 5:39 showing on the clock. Bay gets intercepted, and Choctaw takes it back the other way. The pick hauled in that time by number 9. That's going to be Detarian Grant, who has been in fuego so far this evening. One play later, and Choctaw is back in business, back deep in Bay territory, and just about to go back on the scoreboard again. They lead 42-0 with 5:28 showing. And unfortunately for a depleted Bay Tornado roster, where they have a handful of players who are obligated to go both ways, fatigue begins to become an enemy this late in a half. And Choctaw taking advantage of that. Uten in the I formation. He'll take the snap. The handoff is faked. He's going to find a receiver out in the flats, and good defense there. It's Mario Banks, who comes out of the backfield and catches the little wheel route into the flats there. He's met by number 2, Mike Sims, number 28, Renike Bass for the Bay Tornadoes, who save a likely Choctaw touchdown. Second and goal now from the 9-yard line after a short gain of just 1 yard. We've got a call against Bay. We're going to call roughing the passer against Bay. That's going to be half the distance to the goal line. So Choctaw gets a little help now inside the 5-yard line, down to the 4 with the automatic first down. Uten in I formation. He turns. It's a handoff to Fain, and Fain is going to get met at the line of scrimmage and loses a yard there. Good defensive play there for the Bay Tornadoes. The big defensive end on that side. That's going to be number 9, Anthony Hayes. He steps up and prevents Fain from getting too much room on the outside. A loss of a pair. And it's going to be second and goal for the Indians from the 6-yard line. Uten with the tight end to the right. H back to the left. Hands to Fain, and Fain squeaks into the end zone. Number 22 racks another 6 up, beats a couple of Bay defenders, and punches it in with 4:18 showing. Fain goes off right guard, and there was room to run. Just one safety back there to beat. And I will take a Fain v one-on-one safety every single time. He shows there why. The Indians line up for the PAT. The snap, the hold, the kick is good. And the Indians take a 49-0 lead with 4:18 showing in the first half. You're watching Big Green Indian football. Connor Hollis lines up to kick off and begin the next Bay Tornado drive. They've had just one venture into Indian territory so far this evening. The Indian defense has remained steadfast against the Bay attack. There is the kick. It is up and fielded with a fair catch right at the 20-yard line. And that's where Bay will take over with 4:18 showing on the clock. Fortunately for the Tornadoes, the second half of this contest will take place under a running clock unless something very dramatic happens here in the next 4 minutes and 18 seconds of football play. That being said, again, credit where credit is due. Bay has had opportunities. Bay has come up with a couple of drives that have ended where they probably should not have because of drop balls. Here's another run off the right-hand side. This one is going to be good for about a 7-yard gain. We'll call it 9, right around the first down marker. A good run there by it looked like number 31. That's Keith Hayes, a 6', 180-pound running back listed as a junior. Bay has run the ball well when they've run the ball. That being said, this is only their 4th rush of the contest, and Hayes will go off guard this time, and that's good for another 4 yards. So Bay running the ball well against the Indian defense so far. Their other running back, Marcus Molds, has carried twice for about 45 yards on the evening. This time it's number 31, Keith Hayes, getting the call. And on 2 rushes, he's picked up about 10 yards. So we'll see if Bay continues to run the ball. They will here off left guard. There's room to run again. And again, another good carry. This one good for about 6 yards out to the 39-yard line. So Bay running the ball very well against the Choctaw defense thus far. Now, Choctaw, of course, has been focusing on the pass, considering 95% of the plays so far this evening have been aerial efforts from the Tornadoes. They'll fake the run this time, a little play action, and there's a man, he's got room, and once again, just overthrown. Once again, it's Xander Lovechuck. Once again, Lovechuck gets in behind the Indian defense, and once again, just out of reach of the Bay Tornado wide receiver. Lovechuck has 3 times this evening gotten in behind the Indian defenders. Twice the ball was overthrown by just a matter of inches. Once hit him in the hands in the end zone, and he just was unable to snag the rock. So back to the round game go the Tornadoes. Hayes off the right-hand side, and he's got room to run again. This time held up by a group of Indians. Flag comes in from the far side official, but not before Hayes is given credit for what will be a Tornado first down out across the 34-yard line if the call stands. Face mask against the Indians, according to our official this evening. So that'll be a march off against Choctaw out to the 49-yard line. The incidental face mask is the call, so 5 yards credited to the Bay offense, and now Bay just 1 yard away from being inside of Indian territory. 2:35 showing on the clock, and of course they will get the ball to begin the second half, but under a running clock. There's a handoff again, and this time nowhere to go as the Indians close down on the rushing effort of Hayes again. Keith Hayes, the 180-pound running back, is swallowed up, and I will say this, Choctaw's defensive line is becoming more and more aware that Bay is a threat to run. Just 3 down linemen walked up a pair of backers on the outside, goes Choctaw. There's Watkins running for his life to the right, throws back across his body, was looking for a receiver, but could not get the ball to Xander Lovechuck on the outside, and that's going to bring up a 3rd and 11 now for the Bay Tornadoes. A long 3rd and 11. Taylor Newman, the senior linebacker, checking in for the first time for Choctaw. Again, 3 down linemen as they are still protecting against the pass. Watkins under pressure and goes down hard. Number 34, Miles Brantley, The 210-pound defensive end came off the right-hand side, and he would not be denied the sack, a loss of 4 for the Tornadoes. And now, what started off with a handful of promising rushes for Bay turns into a 4th and 15. They'll need to get to the Indian 41-yard line if they wish to convert. A minute 20 and rolling is the clock here in the first half. Watkins back in the shotgun. He's got nowhere to go. Taken down quickly by the Indian defenders there. An outstanding pass rush from number 43 for Choctaw. That is Jesse Lecter, the defensive end, the sophomore, who came quickly up the gut and prevented Watkins from even looking down the field to find a wide receiver. That is a turnover on downs, and the Indian offense, led by Brady Uton, will take over once again deep in Bay territory and look to cross the half-century mark if they wish, with 58 seconds showing on the clock. Uton under center in the I formation. He'll take the snap, hands it quickly off to the fullback, Mario Banks, and Banks is good for 2 yards up the middle, taken down by most of the Bay defensive line, but not before he reaches the 35-yard line. 45 seconds showing on the clock, and it looks like the Indians will be content to just put the ball on the turf and mercifully let this first half clock run out on the Bay Tornadoes. Receivers left and right, tight end right. Uton will turn. He'll pitch it out to Fain. Fain's trying to pick his way, but nowhere to go. Number 55, Deshaun Gibson, a utility player listed as 6'1", 210 by the Tornadoes, comes up with a tackle for a loss of 1 on the play, so 3rd and 8. But with that being said, the clock ticks down inside of 6 seconds. The Indians will walk to the field house, and they will carry a 49-0 lead with them into halftime. The Bay Tornadoes will head behind the stands and try to regroup before we head into the second half of play. 49-0 for the Indians. Everything clicking for the Indian offense right now. Fain and Banks running very well. Zalis Alexander is catching everything within 50 yards of him. Uton is throwing the ball very well. The offensive line for Choctaw, a unit we have not spoken about this evening, although they very much deserve to be spoken about, has been blocking very well against a very large Bay defensive line. I've got to give Bay one bit of credit, which is this: they are not giving Banks and Fain anything easy between the tackles. Those two have been stuffed behind the line a number of times this evening, but the Choctaw Indian offensive line is giving Uton plenty of time to throw. On the defensive side of the football for Choctaw, you can't say bad things when you're up 49-0 and pitching a first half shutout. However, I suspect the Choctaw coaching staff will have some adjustments to be made, specifically in the defensive backfield. There have been some big-time plays from the defensive backs. Detarian Grant, Marquetrius Warmble, both have had a number of full extension pass defenses. The problem is that they have also both been beaten once or twice down the sideline across the middle of the field in a way that Bay, frankly, should have a touchdown or two on the board. Fortunately, Bay has very much struggled with putting the rock on the ground when they get behind the defensive backs of Choctaw. So I would expect Bay to come out looking for some early big passes. I would expect the defensive backs of Choctaw to make some adjustments. We'll hand it over to the Bay High School $1 Million Marching Band, your Choctaw Hatchie Marching Chiefs. After that, we're back after this. You're watching Big Green Indian Football.
Next we will feature Pierre Keglet with Creek by Radiohead. And the Cleveland Blue Stories with Green Day, Pierre Brady.
Now entering the field, one of the South's most recognized bands, Florida's ambassadors of goodwill, the Choctaw Style Marchers. The band is led under the direction of David Harper, Brad Hart, and John Gray. Percussion instructors are Bryce Milton, Tyler Easterly, DJ Rhodes, and Hayden Fletcher. The color guard is under the direction of Cassie Saddler, assisted by Cole Morales, Daniel Brown, and Rebecca Heller. Drum major is Aaron Ruiz. Percussion captains are Caleb Smith and Blake Campbell. Color guard captains are Dan Knox and Alexia Morris. Tonight's featured performers are Kayla Wakeman, Samuel Adams, and Josh Lloyd. Tonight, the Style Marchers present their 2017 production, To the Crazy Ones. Tonight's musical selections include Eric Clapton's Change the World, Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, Crazy by Gnarls Barkley, The Psycho Theme from the movie Psycho, Andre Day's Rise Up, My Shot from the musical Hamilton, and Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, under the field direction of drum major Aaron Ruiz, Choctaw High School proudly presents the Style Marchers.
In all of us lies the spark of both genius and insanity. And when you find the line that separates the two, cross the line. Here's to the thinkers and dreamers.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
The ones who push us forward.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The innovators and rule breakers.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Here's to the ones that make our world great. Here's to you, the crazy ones.
2,000 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
What your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Ask what you can do for your country.
If you seek peace, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
In all of us lies the spark of creation, of innovation, of passion and progress. And from that spark may burst a flame. As we look to the future, we carry the torch of those who have come before us. We are the crazy ones.
The Choctaw Skywalkers. The Skywalkers are brought to make our secondary football program sponsors. Beachside Community Church and Emerald Coast and the Doctor. We'd also like to thank A to Z Walk and Think, Andrew Institute, the Fronts, Dow Law Firm, Anglo Federal Credit Union, Fort Walton Beach Medical Center, and Wicked Paint. Finally, the Skywalkers would like to thank the greatest support group in the world, our parents, for all their love, support, and energy. It's that time to get your tickets to the 50-50 raffle. The winnings tonight, $304. $304 for the 50-50 raffle. If you are the winner, take your ticket down to the home side concession stands. The winning ticket number is 07793. The winning ticket number is 07793. If you're a lucky winner, head on down to the home side concession to pick up your win. Choctaw will kick off the start of the second half of the play. Ball being beat up by number 25, Farrell. Back deep 14 for the Tornadoes. Kickoff here by number 10, Chapman. Back there by number 13, Mason Brown. Quarterback play.
And we are back underway. Second half under action. 11-12 showing on the clock. The Indians up 49-0 to start the second half. And this half will be played under a running clock, courtesy of Choctaw's offense, dumping nearly half a century on Bay. In the first half of play, Bay with the reception of the football to begin this half, and we are underway. Bay fumbles the football. It's on the turf. It is a scrum for the Rock, and the Indians come up with a turnover just 3 plays into the second half, and the defense snags the Rock away from Bay, so Choctaw takes over inside of Bay territory, looking across the 50-point mark already. 10-21 showing in the second half, in the third quarter, excuse me. Uden back under center, hands it off the right-hand side to Mario. Super Mario runs for, we'll call it, about 9 yards. It's going to be, obviously, Mario Banks, the fullback slash tailback. He's usually lines up as a fullback if he's got Fane in the backfield with him, but could easily pass for an H-back as well when necessary. You saw that speed and acceleration with the Rock. Banks the only running back now with Uden in the backfield. Back in shotgun, he'll hand it off to Banks. Banks off the right-hand side, trying to get to the edge and can't do it. Taken down by number 9 on the outside. Great defensive effort there from Anthony Hayes. They call him Tank, and you saw why. Blew up the right-hand side of the offensive line and was able to prevent Banks from getting too far, but one was what he needed, one's what he got. Choctaw Indians first down now with the ball at the 22.5-yard line. Uten and Fane in the backfield. There is the option read to Fane. Fane keeps, but he's taken down behind the line of scrimmage. Number 35, Anthony Guilford, the defensive tackle, fought his way off guard, and that is one of the very few misfires that the Choctaw offensive line has had so far this evening. Guilford was able to really dip around the offensive center, get into the backfield, and so Fane never really got momentum after he took the handoff. .817, there's a toss to the inside. Nobody home on the reception into a host of Bay Tornado defenders. He was looking to try and pick out Zalis Alexander, the 180-pound, 6'1" tall senior, but Alexander had a host of Tornadoes surrounding him. Incomplete pass. It'll bring up now, waiting for a signal, third down for the Indians. Just wanted to make it official. Uten back in the pocket, looking down the field. Oh, over the middle, he finds Fain, but Fain is drilled at contact. Number 55, Deshaun Gibson, the 6'1", 210-pound senior, lined up at the defensive end spot on that play. Fain caught the rock, and Gibson caught Fain, drove him into the turf. No pickup. Now 4th and very long. We'll call it 4th and 15 for the Indians. So on for the first time this evening for a field goal effort from the 35-yard line. We'll call it a 45 effort. This is going to be a long kick if it's successful. The snap, the hold, the kick is up, and no, not even close. Bay defenders tried to scoop it and make a return. Number 2, Mike Sims, was back there waiting to try to turn it around and take it back, but skips under him and out of the end zone, so a touchback instead for the Bay Tornadoes. They'll take over for the second time in the second half with 6:38 showing, a running clock as the Indians are 49-0 on the scoreboard. Pass down the right-hand side, and he's got a man. Can Lovechuck come up with it again? Lovechuck had an opportunity. Again, Lovechuck had beat the defenders. Again, Lovechuck had nothing but space ahead of him. And again, a questionable throw goes through the hands of Lovechuck, and Bay finds himself 2nd and long. So here's the snap, the handoff to the right-hand side, and this time the Choctaw defensive line was more than ready to hang on to the rushing effort. Number 44 was standing there. That's Sean Yu. He had the pick 6 last week and prevents Bay from would have been a successful rushing effort towards the end of the first half from building on that momentum. 3rd and 10 now from Bay from their own 20-yard line. Watkins back in the shotgun now, calls for the snap. Looking down the field, runs out to the right. He's getting chased. He's going to just dump it to the sideline. Was trying to get it out to Lovechuck, but recognized that he had nobody available to him, so he just chunks it out of bounds. We've got an Indian defender who is favoring his right knee, and that's going to be number 59, Kyle Blanchard, the 225-pound offensive defensive lineman who is going to make his way off of the field after that. So now 4th and a long 10 for the Bay Tornadoes deep inside their own territory. Again, their punt game has been questionable this evening. They tried the fake punt back in the first quarter, but the punter was unable to connect with the wheel route being run by the upback, and the ball fell harmlessly to the turf. It sacrificed really difficult field position for the Bay defense against the Choctawhatchee offense that had been rolling up until that point. 4:08 showing on the running clock here in the 3rd quarter as Bay lines up in punt formation. We'll see if they execute this time. Another fake punt effort for the Tornadoes there. They snap it to the upback. It was number 51, Brandon Jackson, who tried to sneak the ball past the Indian defense, but they were ready for it. They saw the writing on the wall after the fake punt effort back in the first quarter. It comes up about a yard short, and therefore the Indians again take over in Bay territory at the 28-yard line. Uten with a handoff to Fain. Fain off the left-hand side. He is carrying Tornadoes with him as he gets across the 25 down to the 24-yard line goes the big upback. apologize. That was not Fane. That was Ethan Lee, it looked like, who's checked into the game. New quarterback in as well. It's going to be number 12, Brady Peters, taking over. Peters with a handoff to the left-hand side. That one is going to be, again, Ethan Lee. And again, Ethan Lee picks up a respectable gain of about 4, we'll call it 2.5 yards. So it'll bring up now 3rd down and a long 4 for Choctawhatchee, as again, Brady Peters has checked in as your as your quarterback for the Indians. Just under 2 minutes left to go in the 3rd quarter. Peters back in the shotgun. Lee to his right. He'll take the snap, fake the handoff to Lee. The lefty's going to roll out to his left, dodges 1 sack effort, dodges a second, gets across the 1st down marker, inside of the 10, cuts right, 1 more to beat, and he does it. Brady Peters with the rushing touchdown for the Indians. Outstanding vision there. Peters was running for his life to the left to escape pressure. Was able to avoid the tailing defensive lineman, sneaks out down along the left-hand sideline, misses a pair of tacklers on that side, gets into a foot race with the safety who was dropped deep on the far left-hand side of the field. It becomes an angle to the right hash mark. He wins the race and puts up 6 more. The Indians cross the half-century mark, 55-0. The XP is up. The XP is good. With inside of a minute and a running clock in the 3rd quarter, the Indians take a 56-0 lead over the Tornadoes of Bay on senior night. You're watching Big Green Indian football. That's going to do it for the 3rd quarter. The 4s go up in the air as the Indian players signal to their fans on the home sideline that the rest of this game belongs to the Big Green. And the scoreboard would certainly agree with that sentiment as we click into the 4th quarter with a running clock. The Indians up 56-0, and again, everything going right for them, outside of a few little adjustments that need to be made here and there. On the flip side, Bay, everything seems to be going wrong for the Tornadoes, and as we pointed out earlier, sometimes you just have an issue. I used to have a middle school coach who would tell us that the worst issue to have as a football team is sometimes the other team's just better than you are. The Bay Tornadoes, a very respectable effort this evening. I certainly do not want to take anything away from the team wearing white and red. They have given everything they have and then some this evening. And they paid off for it a couple of weeks ago. Went into Fort Walton Beach and got the W against the Vikings, but that same effort just not enough against an Indian team that has been on a roll. They are 4-2 in their last 6 games, and the only 2 losses came to Crestview and Niceville, the 2 teams that squared off for the district crown last week. There's a good kick. It's fielded inside of the 10-yard line, out to the 20, across the 20, and inside of the 24-yard line. That's where the Indians make contact with the Bay kick returner. And that is where Bay will get their first possession of the 4th quarter. 10:46 now. Tick-tock, tick-tock, running clock. First and 10 now for the Bay Tornadoes, excuse me. Back under center, Blaine Watkins, well, I should say in the shotgun formation, sends Lovechuck left to right. He'll hit the little pitch to Lovechuck, and Lovechuck's got some room. He's out across midfield, and it's a foot race. Lovechuck to the 30, to the 20. Could he do it? Yes! Bay is on the board with 10-12 showing Lovechuck for all of the miscues he's had this evening. That time, he turns on the afterburners, and gets Bay on the board for the very first time. With 10 minutes showing, the Tornadoes strike. Extra point pending. They're on the board. 6 points awarded to the team in white. However, trailing by a half-century mark still. 56-6 says the scoreboard. But something to show for their efforts for the Tornadoes, a team that has played with heart, with effort, but unfortunately just not with the numbers and the talent to match the Choctaw Indians this evening. They'll line up with the old swinging gate formation. Waiting for the call, they'll line up in the traditional PAT formation after getting the call from the sideline. The snap is high, but the hold is down and good, and the extra point is good. So Bay gets on the board with just over 9 minutes showing in the football game. 56-7 now. The Indians unable to maintain the shutout through the fourth quarter, LoveChuck was lined up as the wide receiver, split out on the line of scrimmage on the far right, goes into motion, and Bay's used quite a bit of motion this evening. Once or twice they've tried to put the man in motion. They had the effort back in the second quarter where they did the double pitch end around and tried the pass out to Mitchell, who had run from the quarterback spot down the sideline, but unfortunately the ball was floated by the wide receiver Chapman just a little too high in the air, so it was picked off by Grant for the Indians. They had a couple of other end-around efforts, but for the most part, Choctaw has been ready for them. This time, number 84, Xander LoveChuck, came from the right-hand side, got into a foot race with the linebacker in coverage, was able to beat him to the edge, ran through the second level of the Indians, and again, all night long, Choctaw's defensive backs have been struggling and playing over-aggressive. Again, you don't want to take away anything they've been doing in their aggressiveness this evening, but unfortunately, it's created a couple of situations where Xander LoveChuck has been able to take advantage. He's put the ball on the turf a few times, but that time, instead, takes it about 70 yards to the house. 56-7 in favor of the Indians. Here's the kickoff. Toe meets leather, and we are underway. The ball this time sails into the end zone, and the touchback called. It looked like we might see the return effort there from Reggie Fain, who caught that ball about 4 yards deep in the end zone, but the touchback signaled by the White Hat, and the Indians take over on their own 20-yard line. This is their worst starting field position of the evening, coming off of the Bay touchdown. So Brady Peters now, your quarterback, taking over, feet on the 15. There's the keeper off the left-hand side, calls his own number, and he is met and thrown down violently by number 27, Shamar Hill, the linebacker for the Tornadoes there. Hill was waiting for Peters. Peters went with the read option, decided to keep it himself, and Shamar Hill, very wisely, sitting at the defensive end spot, waits for the quarterback to make his decision and attacks. So Peters picks up about 2. It'll be 2nd and 8 now for Choctawhatchee. Peters back in the shotgun. He'll take the snap, looking for the quick throw to the left, and he connects to number 17, who makes his way out just shy of the 30-yard line. That's Dalen Bradford, his first connection of the evening, the 5'6", 155-pound senior wide receiver who gets catch number 1. It's good for about 7 yards, and we will call it 3rd and a long 1 to go to convert the first down for the Big Green offense. Peters back in the huddle. Calling out his play, a couple of new tailbacks lined up. Bringing in the big boys comes Choctaw. Number 75, Jason Godfrey, lined up as your H-back. The snap is mishandled, and the ball is fumbled. And it's recovered by Bay. So Choctaw brings in the jumbo package to try to refrigerator parry their way to a first down. The snap is mishandled as the offensive line was coming very aggressively out of their stances. Peters turned and tried to get it into the waiting arms of Jason Godfrey, a 6'1", 300-pound offensive lineman who was going to slam his way off center, but The risk that you run when you send in one of the big boys who doesn't carry the ball very often is a mishandled handoff, and that's what we have there. So the ball goes back to Bay. Wide receiver in motion. They're going to run the same play they scored on last time. It's foot race for Chapman to the outside, and this time Chapman is met by a pair of Indians. He gains a couple. Number 34, Miles Brantley, ultimately brings Chapman down to the turf, but not after a very minimal gain of a pair of yards. It'll be 2nd and 8 now for Bay, who has the ball right on the 26-yard line of Choctaw after the turnover. Watkins back in the shotgun. Nobody with him, though. 4 receivers to the right. Same play this time will go off to the right-hand side. This time it's number 16, Dalton Rutherford. He's going to grab another couple of yards, and he is going to be brought down at the 23-yard line of the Indians. So now we'll call it 3rd down and a long 5, even 6 yards to go for the Bay Tornadoes. 3 consecutive times. The first one, Xander Lovechuck took it about 70 yards for the touchdown. Bay's tried the same toss sweep there to the wide receiver. It's not worked the last couple of times, so now they'll go back. Brantley's going to call his own number, and he is met immediately. That time on the big sack right up the gut is number 76 for Choctaw. That's Tion Duncan. That's his 2nd tackle for a loss recorded this evening, and this time it's going to be 4th and 9 for Bay after a loss of a couple on that run effort by their quarterback, Blaine Watkins. 3:08 showing on the clock as Choctaw looks to end their season with a rout of the Bay Tornadoes. Again, need a couple of games to go their way. Both Nice and Tate need to lose their matchups this evening in order for Choctaw to make the playoffs. It's tossed up to the end zone there. Watkins was looking for Isaiah Paul, the senior wide receiver, and looked like he might have had a chance on the football, but number 11 and number 8 collapsed on the rock. The combo effort from Xavier Kane Fuller and Tanner Pattison prevent Bay from scoring on what will likely be their final offensive play of the evening, as now there are 2.5 minutes remaining in the game. So Choctaw with the toss down inside their own territory there. The pitch out to number 23. That is Kyber McLaughlin, the freshman running back for Choctaw. Loses a couple on the toss sweep. We'll say loses 4. 2nd and about 14 now for Choctaw. We're down inside of 1 minute and 46 seconds in the football contest. Peters back under center, the I formation, fullback and halfback lined up with him. Fumbles the snap, it's on the ground again. Peters was able to pick it back up, but is met immediately by big number 9. That's Anthony Tank Hayes for the Bay Tornadoes. No gain, no loss on the play. 3rd and 14 now for Choctaw. And Choctaw in no hurry here on 3rd down, as they'll be able to run this clock out on the football contest. Peters back under center, I formation, 17 seconds showing on the play clock. He takes the snap early and turns with a handoff, but met immediately in the backfield is the running back. It was number 51 for Bay on the stop, Brandon Jackson, and with 43 seconds left to go, Choctaw on 4th down will likely just let the clock run as long as possible. Waiting for the official to start the play clock. If he does so inside of, well, no, we're inside of the time. So Choctaw able to let this one run out and get the victory. Again, we want to thank our WBGI crew. Hillary Brown is in charge of that group. Tonight's crew bringing you the action on audio and visual work. Valerie Beckvermit, Megan Dwyer, Emma Farrell and Sophia Goss, all in attendance in the box and making us sound and look as good as we do. Congratulations to the Choctawhatchee Indians. They will finish their season at 500, a very respectable 500 effort on the campaign. They now turn their eyes to the end of the games of Nice High School and Tate High School. If both of those teams fall this evening, Choctaw will make the playoffs. If either one wins, this will be the final game of the year for the Big Green. Congratulations to every senior player on senior night here at Choctawhatchee High School, Joe Etheridge Stadium. Again, thanks to the WBGI crew for bringing you the live coverage of this Choctawhatchee High School football game. We will join you again, not terribly long from now, with the Choctawhatchee basketball season. Coach Andy Thigpen and his gang looking to field a very competitive team this year. I'll be with you on the play-by-play calls throughout basketball season as well. My name is Rob Brown. We very much appreciate you watching again. Congratulations to Choctaw. They rout Bay 56-7, end their season at 500. We'll turn our attention to two other games to see if Choctaw finds a way into the playoffs this year. Thanks for watching. This has been Big Green Indian Football, a production of WBGI. Have a great night, everybody.